If you're curious which company is the better option, Progressive versus Geico, today we're going to go in depth and actually explain the different benefits and the cons to each of those companies. Now, in past videos, we talked about specific numbers. Your average 20-year-old pays this much for insurance. And we're going to get a little bit more wide of a range because most of those videos are based on articles that have a small sample size. And I want to get a little bit more generalized to give you an idea what's the best route to take. Before we dive directly into the numbers here that are going to go over those in-depth pieces, I want to let you know that if you are shopping for either Progressive or Geico and you're not quite sure, I'll put a link in the description below where you can do a quote with a local agent. Most of the local agents now have the ability to quote both of them. So if you are looking and shopping around, I'll put that in the description below. Otherwise, if you're under 25 and you're looking at Geico, your average cost of insurance is going to be between $2,500 to $5,000 per year. And that's essentially you're doing full coverage on the car, having really good coverage. You can get lower than that. So we're talking, what, $200 a month to $400 a month is what you can expect as a young driver. That's if you're on your own, not on your parents' policy. If you go with Progressive, you're looking closer to $32,000 to $7,000 per year. So Geico is winning the battle on the higher risk type of policy. When you get age 26 to 30, it starts to level off. So when we go further in depth on the actual pieces that the companies carry, you may be more interested in the coverages because now at Geico, we're only looking at about $1,700 per year for those similar coverages. In Progressive, you're looking just close to that $2,000 range, depending on the risk. If you've got tickets, it makes sense to check them both, but we do have to know that Geico is competitive with those tickets. It's odd that I've personally seen Progressive change their price lower sometimes when you get a ticket. So it just depends on your profile. When we take your age, your location, the vehicle, the risk, all of those pieces, your insurance score, and we put them in what I call a profile. We put it in both those softwares, and sometimes having a ticket takes you from this bottom top tier into the top bottom tier, which can be a better price. That's why shopping with a local agent can help you at least figure out which one's the best cost effective and what coverages can mix with those to meet the budget that you're looking for. Age 40, about $1,100, almost $1,200 with Geico, and you're looking at about $1,600 with Progressive. I honestly disagree with that. Now, I had some numbers ran across a deep dive, and I think that they're probably even in my opinion. I think when you're at that age 40, it doesn't matter what company you go to. If you have a clean history, you have a good insurance score, you're in a good location, you're looking to do maybe home with it, renter's insurance with it, the typical 40-year-old that is the policy, you're probably going to find that most companies want your business like crazy. It means that Progressive and Geico might not even be the fit. You may be leaning more towards a Safeco or more towards a Liberty or more towards the Travelers, one of those other carriers that that local agent can look at. But if we're just looking at those two companies, I think Geico is half winning that battle just by a small margin. Now, when you get older, 60 and plus, same thing carries over, about $1,700 to $1,800 with Geico and about $2,000 a year with Progressive. Which one's a better company? Here's where JD Power comes in and explains this. I get it. Leave it in the comments below. I don't mind it. Technically, JD Power is a pay-to-play company, but they do decent reviews, and I've seen some pretty good information from them. They have done a customer satisfaction. Now, we've all seen the commercials. If you look at the Geico, they're talking about we have a 97% satisfaction rating, not according to JD Power. Geico is a little bit trailing from Progressive. I'm actually lying because it's actually Progressive that is trailing a little bit. So out of 1,000 score that JD Power does the review, overall, what is your satisfaction between claims, between customer service, between having prices change on you, being able to access the app, if you had things happen and you just need to change red car to blue car, all of those pieces that happen in a policy create what's called a consumer score, essentially what you're calling a satisfaction survey. So out of 1,000 points, Geico is getting about 632 points as of 2024. Moving into 2025, you're probably going to follow suit, although it's probably going to increase a little bit just because they've opened up the doors for more independent agents to start getting involved. Correction, it's 692 for Geico out of 1,000 points. Progressive scored 672, which is just a little bit less than what Geico has. So in this category, honestly, I'd put them as even. Both are really good companies, easy to work with. I think the only problem where you fall in with Progressive is if you are going directly to them, because you can go to Progressive yourself, you can set up your own policy, you can do all of those things. A lot of times you may be missing a discount or not, but if that's the case, if you constantly are asking them for help, there is a surcharge at the renewal. If you have too many questions, if you have too much service requests, there's a cost for the company to do that. And Progressive is one of the few companies that does include a fee for the renewal if that's a common scenario. Okay, but the customer satisfaction should just obviously mean that there's way less complaints for both these carriers. It should just follow suit. Geico's the winner. That's actually the opposite. Progressive, according to the NAIC, that's the government that actually gets involved and files the complaints, Progressive has less complaints than Geico had. They do it on a 1-point scale, which we can turn it into 100 if we want, but out of the 1 point, Progressive is a 0.65. The lower number is better, where Geico is a 0.91. So there's a lot more complaints for Geico than there are for Progressive. It's actually pretty considerable. So if we broke it off and said a 100-point scale, out of 100, 690 didn't complain. So now looking at the Better Business Bureau, that's another option that we can say, okay, we don't trust the NAIC, we don't trust the JD Power, let's look at Better Business Bureau. Nobody does good on there, by the way, and neither of these companies did either. Progressive and Geico had way too many issues with the Better Business Bureau. I'll be honest with you, the Better Business Bureau, although you may love them, I'm not a big fan, because 90% of the time, I only imagine people going there to complain. Out of the numbers, they scored about 1 to 2 out of 5. That's really low as far as companies go. Again, that's one of the numbers I would probably toss out, but in general, they both didn't do good. But Mark, who do we trust? Well, there's a company called Trustpilot, and they're a review company, are also an aggregator, so they're trying to collect data, have you do quotes, just like you can do in the description below. So if you are shopping, there's a description below, you can fill out a quote there, get a Progressive, maybe a Geico, maybe an Allstate, Nationwide, Safeco, Liberty. All of those guys usually are in that option. But if you're looking at the Trustpilot, they offer similar. They didn't give a good review for either of them either, which kind of leads that the Better Business Bureau is fairly accurate in this case to where a lot of people don't love these companies right now, which is weird because you have a 97, 96, 90, 85, whatever percent customer satisfaction, but you don't have good reviews on these separate pages. That obviously tells you that they do a lot of marketing, they do a lot of business, and your Trustpilot, your Better Business Bureau, both fairly reputable companies, have those lower rankings. It does depend on the state that you're in and the product that you're looking at. Now, we're primarily talking about car insurance, but if you're looking at home insurance, it goes haywire because Geico doesn't technically have their own home insurance. They use all of these other companies, insurance companies. That's why if you're looking for home and auto, it's a clear cut. You're probably going to lean towards Progressive over a Geico policy. They're ranked a 1.2 for Geico and 1.3 out of 5 stars for Progressive. So moving on to another reputable company is Zebra. They also rank companies from reviews that people give. Now they're actually saying 4.3 out of 5 stars for Geico and a 4.5 out of 5 stars for Progressive. Now we can mash all of these together. So what we're looking at, if we were to take all the main reviews, we're about a 2.5 to 3, in some incidences 3.5 on average per company. So as far as the reviews go, they're pretty even. Progressive is winning the battle a little bit more, and I think a lot of that is showing that Progressive is extensionally better in the review section, mainly because Geico just started letting agents help. Progressive has been doing this for years, and the fact that Geico handled all their own service, handled all their own situations, handled their own claims, although they did do good on claims in general compared to Progressive, they didn't do a good enough job to win the reviews over. That means even though they were ranked one of the top 5 companies to lean towards in 2024, they handled everything in-house. Now that they're letting independent agents start selling their product, I think that's going to help improve because now they've got agents that really understand the product, they know what coverage is, and they're not going to put the wrong customer, at least I hope not, with the wrong type of company. So if you're a better fit for Nationwide, they're going to shift you over to Nationwide. If they think you're a really good fit for a Geico or a Progressive, they're going to shift you over to that option as well. What good is a review if you don't talk about the claims? Let's dive in and go over what the differences are between each carrier. We mentioned that some are a little bit better, but overall, according to CNBC and according to JD Power, they're pretty even. They're about 700 out of 1,000 score, which sounds great, but it's below average because you're not paying a higher premium for these companies. These carriers are more competitive than most other companies, but head to head, when they're going against each other, prices are similar. Claims are similar. I think Progressive has a little bit of an edge over Geico, at least at this point. Next year might change a little bit when we redo this review. They're both improving, adding different products, which we'll talk about here in just a moment as far as what you can expect as far as coverage goes. There are some add-ons that both of them are starting to do. Additional states being added to where they're starting to work on working in Michigan. They're starting to work on Texas they're really competitive in, and they're starting to work in some of these other major states that need that better, more competitive pricing. And that's going to benefit us financially, but also product-wise, because at least in my experience, I have had very little issues with either company. Now, Progressive is a little bit more digitally focused, which is benefit to a lot of you. If you're trying to do everything on your own, you're going through the app. Geico has a great app, so does Progressive. But in general, Progressive has planned for this. So the products, there was a lot to go over. There's different ones, different states. I'm going to use my cheat sheet here because I really loved some of the pieces that they've recently introduced. Now, the part that is really strong for Geico is their mobile app is really good. Their experience is good there. By the way, I do say that Progressive is more forward-thinking in this because I just understand their model a lot better than I do Geico's, because Geico's changing their model. They're changing it from the direct only to independent now, where you can go through an agent. Geico's app is actually rated better than Progressive's, and Progressive's app's pretty darn good. There's a lot of customers that join them and cancel and come back, and there's like moving the policies around if you had an old account, resetting the account. There are some headaches there. There's also that telematics software that both of them are offering, and I know Progressives can go backwards. So for those customers that started to show that they're good drivers, but they ended up being really bad drivers on their software, then they had those issues. I'll link the video that actually goes over. I tested that one out myself and show you the results that I came up with. So let's go over the pros and cons. Geico, in general, their pros are they are a lower rate according to the numbers that we're looking at. Number two, they have a strong digital presence. They have a really good app. They do have the telematics software that you can do the test driving, and you essentially get a better deal. I've saved hundreds off on my personal policy just doing those with different carriers. Financial strength, they're an A++ rated company. For those that don't understand that, it's really good. That means they have money to pay claims. They're stable and they're strong. They have a ton of customers, ton of money. They don't have issues paying any claims financially. Doesn't mean they're going to necessarily pay the claim. It just means that if that comes up, they have the money to pay the claim. Discounts, there's a ton, multi-car, multi-family, if you're doing renters type insurance. They do technically offer sub-companies. They affiliate other like renters or home insurance companies that give you a discount on the auto, so there's a discount there. Good driver, they do a military discount, I believe. If you're like a federal employee, that's because Geico was government employee insurance company. That's the name Geico. So they do offer that. If you're part of Berkshire Hathaway, that's essentially the company that owns or is part of them. They give a discount if you have stock with them. So if you're owner of there's a certain stock that you have to own. I'd try to link it if I can find it again. I made a video about it years ago, but it's a discount that you can get. Also, they do something called a mechanical breakdown, which Progressive, I think, has copied. I was always wondering why that just recently came out. This was in the last several months. Progressive started offering mechanical breakdown. They've always offered some sort of a savings system, but now if your car breaks down, you're going to have a warranty built into the cost of your insurance. It's probably cheaper than going out and spending thousands of dollars on an individual warranty. You can just have it built into your current policy. So the cons for Geico is customer reviews, not the best. They've got that 1.1 star on Better Business Bureau. Their claims handling and communication is probably touted as one of the least best as far as companies compared Geico and Progressive. They have little customization, so they are more of a baseline policy. Apart from that extended warranty type policy, that mechanical breakdown, there's not a ton added. There's very limited as far as the additional coverages. So the glass breakage, having certain types of deductibles that are better, that are waived in certain situations, and all of those pieces that you would want added to a policy just don't come with it. There's not a cash back option. There's not a savings bank. Most states don't offer those. They do have the telematics. So those are some of the things that are a little bit negative or a con for going with a Geico policy. The other is the no local agent. That's probably going to be true. That's changing because agents are starting to get appointed, but there's still not enough of them. So as Geico is starting to grow and expand, just like Progressive did years ago, then it's getting the local agent will shift. But right now, if you go directly, you're likely going to have to deal with a 1-800 number, never going to talk to the same agent again. You're always just wondering who's on your side. The home bundling is a con, although there is some sort of a discount, but because they're affiliating with other companies, they're not there to help you in that aspect. They're there to kind of shift you over and get you in front of somebody that can help you, but it's not necessarily going to be the fit that combines everything together. I want an expert that understands my house, understands my car insurance, and anything else that I add to that. I want to make sure that I'm covered properly with what I'm paying for that policy. So what are the pros to Progressive? The pros is they're about the same price. They're within a few to $10 to $20-ish a month, depending on your scenario. Again, you probably should quote them both just to find out, but cost-wise, they're very competitive there. The other pro is that they are also competitive with higher incidences. So in my experience, I've seen DUIs, I've seen not having insurance for 20 plus days. Any of those situations can be major increases with most carriers. And with Progressive, I've even seen the rate go down like we talked about earlier. That can be beneficial. I wouldn't count on that because if you have those, it likely is going to raise the price, but they do it a lot less with Progressive than they do with Geico, at least from what I've seen. They have a ton of discounts similar to Geico, but they also have an online discount. They have the name your price tool thing if you're doing it yourself. If you're going through an agent, you're not going to have to pay those extra fees because you can ask the agent the advice, so you won't actually call them 100 times and ask, you call the agent 100 times and ask, and they'll be able to answer the questions without you having to get extra charges for that policy. Their snapshot is really good, and that's going to net you a pretty good discount. 12% I think is the average discount with one of those snapshot options. If you're paying $200 a month, there's your $24 difference. You're going to likely show that you're a good driver, get that average discount. I think it can go up to 30% if you're a really good driver, and again, if you do really bad, then you take it off, or you might go backwards a little bit. But there's discounts that you can get that add to that policy, which help make Progressive a really good option. Digital-wise, we talked about earlier, they have a really good app. It's very responsive. They've done a ton with it. They've been doing it forever. They've planned ahead. So all of that technology, it's just there. Both of them have it. Progressive is really doing well with it. Geico's rated really well with it. And then the multi-policy. That's also a policy that you can add because Progressive did do what Geico did back then. They had an affiliation, but they ended up buying that company. So Progressive has what's called ASI, the American Strategic Insurance. They bought, or at least partnered or somehow obtained, the ASI homeowners insurance, which is really competitive for renters. So that's an option as well. If you're looking to combine those two together, then Progressive is going to be a little bit better of an option as far as having that direct line where you have everything under one roof. Now, if we go outside of car insurance, they're killing it with motorcycles, and they're doing great with boats, and those parts. Progressive has always just won the show, and they do really well with that. The cons, they are a little bit higher than Geico is asking to pay, so their averages cost a little bit more. They have the snapshot, which is a pro, but it's also a con because it can backfire. It can go backwards and cost you money. And so if you're not a good driver, don't do the snapshot. Again, I'll link my video at the end that goes over the one that I did so you can see the results that I got. They are rated a little bit poorly, just like Geico is as far as claims and customer satisfaction, although they're good with customer satisfaction, so they're nice to talk to. But if you're not working with the right agent and you don't have someone that you constantly go to, you're likely going to have some headaches down the road if you have claims with them. And I'm going to add in one other because I don't love their pricing model sometimes because they do base some of it on what's called an insurance score. So it's like your claims history, your credit, your tickets, all of those things. There's a bundle of a ton of things that mix up and make a score. Some states with Progressive, they do a different down payment. So they might make you pay the whole thing up front. Otherwise, they don't want the business. Or they might make you pay 16%, which is normal. Or they might make you pay 25%. So it's changed over the years. It depends on your scenario. In most cases, you just get that monthly payment. If you pay in full, it's a big benefit. They usually knock off $100, if not several $100, if you're going to pay that 6 months in full. More lately, neither company is offering a 12-month policy, although I've started to see a couple of progressives in a couple states that do offer that yearly policy again. It's something I wish they would both go back to, but it's something that just hasn't been an issue or hasn't been a topic that they even cared about. So which one is the better option? I'll tell you, if you're younger, go with Geico. That's probably the one I would lean towards. If you're younger and you have a ticket, then check them both. If you're older and you're looking to bundle a home and auto and maybe some other toys, then Progressive is the one I would lean towards because they offer more products and they usually offer now the ability to talk to an agent. Those are the ones that I would lean towards as far as the two options. Let me know what your thoughts are. Was there something that I missed that you noticed with your Progressive or Geico policy that is different than what we talked about? Again, if you are shopping around, I'll put the link in the description below. If you want to know more about, we talked a little bit about that insurance score because it does play a huge factor on the cost of that. I'll link that video here. If you want to watch the Progressive snapshot that I did where I got the results that were we'll see. I'll link that video there. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.